Shall we start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. This promises to be quite an entertaining and explosive session with our eclectic guest list. So, I'll start with the first question. Um, let's start with the D word, Durandar. Durandar has become the highest grossing Indian film, I think a couple of days ago. It is also a film that has polarizing opinions. My question to all the panelists, and I'd love to start with Bhavna ji, is that comparatively in the past, our big monster hits have been movies like Hum Aapke Kaun, DDLJ, which were fundamentally family movies that everyone enjoyed. And now something seems to have shifted. What do you think has changed?
First and foremost, I love Dhurandhar.
Me too.
So most of the critics have bashed it up, but I loved it for the content, the projection, the way the music was used, the pace. Who is this talking to loudly?
That's the other session.
How? Because the AC of this room is low, so if we can either hear them or we can talk. Who is the person in charge here? The problem is most of the time there is no one person here who is going to be responsible for what's happening. Can you tell me how do we talk when this other person is talking? So anyway, I think they'll take a long time to settle that. So I loved the film and most of the critics didn't like it, and there was also a lot of controversy where anybody who had given a negative review was pulled out, and my review was not pulled out. So I was just wondering, either I'm not important or my review is not important, but for me both is okay. I think to say that Hum Aapke Hain Kaun or DDLJ or any of Yash Raj films was the so-called family film that the audience liked and went to and made it into a super duper hit. Cinema reflects life, and life keeps changing. The dynamics of family and society keeps changing. So because of that, today everybody is clued in about what's happening in the neighboring country, what's happening to the politics, it's all up close. So Dhurandhar symbolizes that. And all the time the dynamics will keep changing. Again maybe when I'm no more, the Hum Aapke Hain Kaun will come back. But at the moment Dhurandhar is calling the shots. And let me tell you that Dhurandhar is also inspired from the lot of South movies that are doing extremely well. Whether it was KGF 1, 2, whether it is Bahubali, whether it was, which was the next one of Rajamouli, the one that...
RRR.
RRR. So it's all, everything people want to see big scale.
Okay, thank you. What are your perspectives?
Well, I think first thing was because of Dhurandhar, it brought a nice big smile in the fraternity. We all were very happy seeing the box office. And of course, it's been 6-7 months now that is happening with smaller films also, be it Sayara, Diwani, Diwaniya, films which you may not have heard also done 100 crores, okay. Cinema is economics and emotion, both. So Dhurandhar, to add on to Dhurandhar, I think this is a very new grammar in terms of storytelling, which is what I love the most. And that too, 3.5 hour film. Whoever you ask, "Hey, it's a very long film, मुझे जाऊँगा कि नहीं पता नहीं." But eventually everybody is gone and seen, which is a very daring way to for the producers and directors to do a film like that. And hopefully the part 2 is going to work really well. And the footfall, I would say that it's also I would say it's a turning point. Like what happened with Satya, that was a great turning point for Bollywood. Dhurandhar is a turning point for me as a director, I would say. I've been an indie filmmaker, I'm also working in studios, but this is actually the time where we can say that Bollywood is changing now. We had a very bad phase post-COVID, and I thought, because after that, what happened with OTTs, we thought there's always anxiety. Every time there's a new technology comes, there's an anxiety that what will happen to cinema. We always were worried about theatre. But this, I thought, will take a longer time for the footfall, people to come to theatre, pay the whole popcorn economy. It will happen much later, I thought, and it is really happening very quick. In just 3-4 years. Last 6-8 months, if you see, there are a lot of films which just worked. Even Love the Lady worked in the box office. So I think it's a great time for Bollywood again. Of course, South other films were working, but I can extend that a little more later. But yes, in all said and done, Dhurandhar is a great beginning for us.
Thank you.
I have a little different answer.
Will you be offering an academic perspective as well?
Yes. That's what I wanted to mean. That from as being an academician and film studies researcher, so I look at these phenomena a little differently, because if you look at 1992 and when Yasna Chopra's all these films were coming, and those family-oriented films were giving a kind of hope, because again the neoliberal phase, which was giving a kind of new economic perspective to new middle class people. So therefore, I find that era was completely a different era, as already Bhavna ma'am has pointed out. That if you look at cinema changes as per the time. So we at that time it was more of a like, if you look at the socio-politics of the time, it was very different than today. And I find this particular phenomenon, what Dhurandhar has just now got released, and the kind of narrative it has, it's not very new, because just for last 1 or 2 decades there are quite a few films which are coming up in the similar line, but definitely the scale and the kind of the landscape of the film, it's probably the new, because if you look at post-COVID era, the scale has become huge in the film. If you look at from Pathan to RRR and all other films, Jawan, the scale, because now it has become like for niche market, we have OTT, and for larger than life experience, we have the theatrical release. So therefore, I find now it has become the segmentation market. Segmentation has become in such a way that if it is larger than life, then only we will go to theater. So it's like that. So I will give it to her.
So you think scale is the number one driver for a movie like Dhurandhar?
Scale, along with that, one important point I just missed out to point out, that is definitely, if you look at again the content and the narrative of the film, that is also quite some time we are just dealing with those kinds of narrative. Though the similar line of narrative we had earlier, it's not that for the first time we are making a film on against or anti-Pakistan. It was there, but the narrative, because we had quite few war with Pakistan. So in post-1990s, at that time the war film with Pakistan, the film were border and those guys. But now the nature of anti-Pakistan films are also quite different.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with something she says, like few of the points. Some points I feel differently. I don't think that people are going to the theatre only for the scale. I don't think people watch the OTT only for a specific thing and go to the theatre for a specific thing. It is the audience, we underrate them. The audience is very sharp. They smell a film and they always know from the poster that they're going to watch this film or they're not going to watch. आजकल इतना ज़्यादा हाइप होता है, प्रमोशन होता है. एक ज़माने में ये सब कुछ नहीं था. फिर भी फिल्म का पोस्टर लगते ही people used to decide कि ये पिक्चर हम नहीं देखेंगे. I feel 21 has just been released.
Yeah.
It is also a war film. It is about the 70 war that we had with Pakistan. And It is not bashing Pakistan. It is for the first time where both the countries are being so courteous. Jaideep Ahawat is the Pakistan representative, and Dharmendra, who's come for a school reunion in Lahore, represents India. And it is Jaideep who has killed Dharmendra's son. And he's thinking how he's going to break the story. And then it happens so organically. And when he finally tells Dharmendra, you expect Dharmendra to get at least a little angry that this is the man. And I think the closing scene and the dialogue where Dharmendra is drawing from the universe, from nature, and he's saying that if the trees can recover, if the earth can recover from disasters, why are we still holding on to grudges? So every theory we define in cinema, just as he said, it's about emotion and economics, there is always a counterfact which is breaking the theory. So I have now stopped following any theories. It's just heart and nothing else.
Alright.
Well, like the way we developed it, like in 60s we had seen films which are feminine, 80s it was angry young men, 90s NRI stories. This is, I think, there is a strong nationalism emotions which is playing with us. So in the theater. So I think walking, cinema walking in theater is because the kind of cinema people want to watch and be very. But there is one point of time, if you see how we lost also, how Bollywood lost the plot is also because it's a genre which has been practiced for decades, okay, and we are known for that. But in between, probably it was insecurity of the creators where we started following southern cinema. There was a point of time where we thought, okay, there is Universal Pictures and all of them came to India and we thought we'll make films like Hollywood, which is where we lost. If we are strict with the genre and be honest with our storytelling, probably it will never die. The genre will never die.
Okay. Do you have anything else to say about this? Okay. Okay, that's the end of the Durandar question. Now, because all three of you all come from very different backgrounds, I have a question, and again, I'd love for Bhavna ji to answer first because she has seen this industry for many decades. My question is about stardom. Okay. Stardom, the concept of stardom. Okay. And you have seen all of this. You have interacted with all of them. You are a maker and you are an academic. So, my question is, do you think the concept of stardom itself is dying? And will, if that is the case, will stars be replaced by stories? Because even today, if a movie is being set up, the first question is, उसमें कौन है? Instead of उसमें क्या है? Right. So I'd love your comments and your thoughts on stardom.
उसमें कौन है या उसमें क्या है is already changing. For a long time, ever since the corporates have come into the fraternity, we are saying again and again content is the queen. After that, we said the content is the king and the queen. Content was always of prime importance in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s. To an extent, in the 80s, it started dwindling later. The legendary filmmaker V. Shankaram, when Yash Chopra separated from B.R. Chopra to start his own films, he told him that don't run after the stars. Your name should be the attraction and people would come to see your film. For example, it is a V. Shankaram film, whether it is Jal Bin Machli or it is Geet Gaya Patthar Hode, people are going to see V. Shankaram film. They don't know who is Rajvi, who is Jitendra, who is Mumtaz, nothing. These days what is happening is, I don't know, maybe the trend is started by the South because they make very large scale films and it's all about action and background music. That the scale is so big that whichever actor, you need a big actor. And then the actor's attitude is कि अगर इतनी scale है, इतना budget है, तो मेरे को कितना मिलेगा? And this is what is going wrong because सबसे पहले सब आके बोल रहे हैं मुझे क्या मिल रहा है? And everybody, the lion is starting to take his share away. And then from what is left, the filmmaker has to make this large scale film. It doesn't end there because the lion is taking his large share, and then the lion thinks that he's the king in the jungle and also on the sets. So he has his paraphernalia. No actor travels without 5-10 people. There is once upon a time just a manager or a secretary. Today he has an image consultant, he has a marketing manager, he has a PR, he has a makeup man, he has a, if she's a hairdresser, a spot boy. It is unaffordably expensive for the producer. I don't know how the producers are alive without the heart attack. Then this olden days में जब हम makeup room में जाके एक AC चला दो और वो makeup करे और बैठे और जिसको मिलना है मिले. अभी it's vanity vans. They want one vanity van for themselves, one for their staff, one for something else. So it's going out of control. I just feel that it's about to crash. The bubble is going to burst any day because now the filmmakers are fed up. The producers are tired of all these extra expenditures. अच्छा ऐसा नहीं है कि if you are asking for so much, you are delivering the next day. All these figures are exaggerated and put out so that the ego of the star is to be fed. You go every time I open the phone on the Instagram and they'll say 350 crore, 400 crore. Every week I watch every film. Sometimes if I'm not able to go for the press show, I book the ticket at the nearest cinema hall. 8 o'clock show, 9 o'clock show. I swear, सिनेमा हॉल में 3 लोग भी नहीं होते. अभी सिनेमा हॉल में अगर 3 लोग नहीं है तो तुम लोग बोल रहे हो 350 करोड़ हो गया, 450 करोड़ हो गया. It should be a packed auditorium. Every show should be bursting. So how is it houseful? Who is buying the tickets? It's becoming now a big trap, and it's soon going to crash if it's not crashed already, according to me. Because everything virtually crashes first and then physically. In my head, they have crashed.
I actually to some extent I agree to what Bhagavan has just pointed out. Even your statement, you have already propagated the statement that probably comes
I was asking first.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely, because if you look at again the biggest stars, what we tell that in the late 90s and till today, the Khans, and if you look at Salman Khan's last few films didn't work, and if he is such a star, then he is on screen and his film is working, then why it's not working? So we need to question that as well. And also, I find as if you look at a film like Kerala Story, there was no star in that, but the film, if I'm not wrong, the budget was 26 crore, and the revenue it generated, I think, more than 300 crore, 286, around 300 something, if I'm not wrong. So there was no star, only the storyline primarily, and because what I assume, because of the nature of the storyline was thriller, and it was giving a kind of adrenaline rush. Because of that, it just did that much of business, and along with that, of course, the agenda was attached to that.
That's it. The propaganda is what went against it, and also Kerala Story, of course, did well, but it's an isolated case.
Yeah.
Whereas in the 80s, when there was Basu Bhattacharya, Rishikesh Mukherjee, 70s, Basu Chatterjee, so many of them, they were all making small budget films which was appealing to the real middle class. Why I'm saying real middle class? Because she mentioned the new middle class. In my opinion, there is no middle class today. Because the lower class thinks that they are already arrived, and the upper class thinks that nobody can touch them. And the middle class doesn't want to be middle class. So I don't know where the middle class is gone. Where is when I was growing up, we took pride in the fact that we came from middle class families.
Right. Now people don't
Because
say
the
that.
values were inculcated in us by our parents that this is not how our families behave.
Well, I think I would say stars are both success and failure both aside, if you see.
But also offer some examples of films that you've done for this.
They both survive, but I will give a larger picture, then I'll come to my films. Look at Korea. So 2 decades, it is Korean era. Their food, their K-pop, music, films, OTT shows, everything has been successful. And I was in Busan this year also, last year. They are now struggling because there is a point they have reached now. They're worse than India now. And this is the time where what Bhavnaji also says that in a way we have arrived in Bollywood because that already people have understood the stars, idea of stars that you spend so much, each star carry about 6 or 7 vanity vans. I've seen stars taking 2 vanity vans for meetings also. They're just lying there. This is changing certainly. The bigger stars will also realize nobody gives a guarantee of box office ever. But at the same time, because the smaller films work, say Sayara also, even YRF didn't know the business will be 500 crore. These are 2 new actors, They were not known as stars, children or anything, but film itself has worked because be it song, be it the love story or whatever. Like I said, this is a very small film called Meri Diwani Ke Diwaniya.
Yeah.
They're saying 100 crore. If not 100 crore, even 50 crores for a film like that is a very big business. So which means this is changing. And I would see I'm more optimistic now looking at the audience of 140 crore people, looking at how South keeps inspiring you, where forget Tamil Nadu and Andhra, Telugu and Tamil films. Look at Malayalam films, Tiny little films. There was a film I was involved which was made in 9 crore, made about 80 crore, which is no star cast at all. It's called Malikapuram. Okay? And they do phenomenal business. So, which is a good sign. What we were assuming last 2-3 years, we have been talking that how India can become the content hub of Asia. And we are truly driving towards that. It now depends on how we strategize because cinema, apart from art, it is largely a business strategy also. And star will be there, star will survive because especially in the world of image, which is your Facebook, Instagram, it is about imaging people. Image is something which attracts people. They correlate with star. The stardom also comes with, we feel it's like a godly figure for our audience. That will not change. But yes, they have to be sized so that the production budget can be sized. It is scary sometimes when you plan with a script, Like say, if you give an example of that point of time when films were working really right. My first film, for example, in 2010 when I made I Am Kalam worked really well in theatres. So it was, if I see the money we spent and the recovery is 340 times, that I can't do now. Because things have changed. More is about this, yes, something really important, everybody, we all talk now, is the distribution strategy. If that comes in right place, then I think it will be more secure in terms of business of cinema.
Okay, I just have a sub question to this because you said stardom will survive. There's another perspective that, let's say, in the 1960s and the 70s, when initially Dilip Kumar and then Rajesh Khanna and then Amitabh Bachchan were ruling the roost, there was no social media, so they were not posting that they are eating avocado toast and going to Maldives and all of that. So essentially the thing is, if you want to see them, you have to go to the movies, right? So do you feel now that an actor, let's say a random actor without taking any names, will have 20 million followers on Instagram, but that actor may not get a 2 crore opening at the box office? So do you think the nature of celebrityhood in India has changed, where people are okay looking at them on the phone, but they will not buy a ticket?
Super question. Super question. See, what is happening is all the young filmmakers are doing the promotion with that young star cast. They go to Bangalore city and they go to Jaipur city and then some kind of a mall or some kind of a public place, and everybody gathers and they are waving out and there is a adrenaline rush, and people are getting so excited thinking that हमारी picture में तो कितना interest ले रहे हैं लोग. That crowd is free.
Yeah.
They are not going to translate into your tickets. They are not going to come inside the cinema house. The avocado or the new dress or the slips which are getting longer and longer at all the premiere parties that these girls are wearing, and the stiletto heels are getting more and more uncomfortable. It's translating into their personal likes. But it is not going to necessarily mean that tu meri, main teri, tu mera will be a super success, because you're beaten up on one side by Avatar and the second side by Dhurandhar. Unfortunately, the middle-aged stars or actors, people of my age who are playing mother roles, grandmother roles, the good actors are not getting roles because they are not on the social media. Because the casting agency is first checking you out, how many followers you have, and then calling you for an audition. You will be surprised that I have in the last year called for 2-3 auditions. Because somebody must have randomly looked it up and they must have felt, yeah, देखने में थोड़ी शक्ल ठीक लग रही है, माँ का रोल दे देते. I said, you got mad? So that is how it's operating. It's random. And let me tell you that I was making a joke of it, but then when they offered me a jewelry ad, where I'm the mother of Aditya Rao, a grandmother, because at my age you can't be mother, you have to be grandmother. So it is a different thing that I've had a late child or something. So I'm playing the grandmother of Aditya Rao Hayadri, and I'm a happy grandmother who is looking at jewelry and everything. So I said, okay, I'll do it. मैंने सोचा ऐसे ही न्यू एक्सपीरियंस ले लेती हूँ. कर लिया, अभी आएगा तब आएगा. कोई जूते मारेगा तो नहीं करेंगे नेक्स्ट टाइम. और पैसा भी लिया. पैसे के बगैर कौन काम करता है? Only for money. Where am I to do play a Nirupa Roy on screen?
You can look at this thing in two ways. One, as it is pointed out, that there are like 20 billion followers, but no one is going and watching the film. On the other hand, there are also bigger celebrities than the film stars, I find. Like influencers, if you look at Kusakapila, or there are many like her. So they are much bigger celebrities than there are the film stars.
You mean you're talking the content creators?
Yes. So I find now the whole definition of celebrity also gradually changing. It's not only limited to on-screen presentation or representation. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
But I think we have to clearly define, differentiate that social media following has zero impact on buying tickets. Like in politics also. Somebody can be popular, but do you vote them or not? So, for example, Shraddha Kapoor has the biggest Instagram following, okay? But if you go and see Stree, do you want to evaluate Stree as Shraddha Kapoor's following business? Or the film was a nice horror film and Rajkumar was also there because of that? Obviously, though, it was a paid content, which is why people went in. So I won't connect that with her Instagram following at all. It stays in Instagram, that's it. It doesn't land in the footfall of theatre. Theatre works in a whole different gamut altogether.
Sure. Since you're at the Kalinga Lit Fest, and I think you should start on this one, could you draw like a landscape of the Odisha film industry?
Well, again, I think it's a absolutely great time. I'm very happy this year. There are films, 2-3 films which really worked well in the box office because everybody who comes from Odisha and are anybody who is part of Odia film industry, we were devastated for good many years. None of the film were working, and I always used to say simply that we were not making film for the sake of making films. You were making film for something else, be it somebody's converting money or somebody's idea of that fantasy of making a film. Making a film is quite a tough job. It takes some time. A script takes 3 years, 4 years. Then you come find money. When you find money, you don't get a star. When you make the film, then you hold your film on your head and go literally back, borrow steel to distribute. When you distribute, the theatre people doesn't come. How do you make a film? It's a very tough profession. But now, look at that Bow film, which did remarkable business,
Like what kind of numbers are we talking?
I think that made about 20 crore
On a budget of?
on a budget of 1.5 crore, right? So now 2 crore and made 20 crore. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a huge business, I would say. I think that's the remarkable point where we can say that now we are back in full form. And before that also one or two film worked, 2 crores, 3 crores, 4 crores business, which is fair. But this is a great beginning. And again, this is a Babusan film. I mean, it's just a simple, honest storytelling. Because it's more than Babusan, I would say, the content. It's great, nice filmmaking, which is why people went to theatre and saw.
Unfortunately, I'm not exposed yet to Odia film industry, and this is really unfortunate thing. I really
But you're based here?
acknowledge that.
Are you
For
coming?
last 8.5 years.
Okay.
I wanted to add on also something which I have been trying to speak to a lot of people in Bombay. There's still the mainstream OTT platforms like Netflix, Amazon, Sony, they do not look at Odia content so far, to be very honest.
They don't look at anybody. They think they are something.
No, that's for sure. That we always suffer. But still, I'm saying there's not even introduction of Odia language into Amazon and Netflix, which is, I'm hoping this is the kind of, it's also our fault. It's not theirs, I would say. I would always say, like I said, cinema is business. Apart from emotions, art, it is business. So if they do not have an audience, they do not have a number in their mind, they do not get into that. Like my show came last year in Sony, and it was the first Sony show they dubbed into Odia. Thinking that, okay, there's an Odia director, we have shot in Odisha, there will be some footfall at least to the platform, but they were not very happy, to be honest. So I think this is slowly that point will come. We are changing, the landscape is changing.
I am also not very familiar with the Odia films, but I think I've seen a lot. But it was at a Kalinga festival a few years ago. I met this very beautiful girl, and then I got to know that she's an actress, Anu Chaudhary. And I was very hungry, and I didn't want to eat at the hotel. And I said, take me to eat some local food. And she took me to some place where some very nice, outside some university or college, some chaat was there. It was so good that Anu and I have become now very good friends. And I keep seeing her videos and what she does. And I feel it's very interesting what she's doing. So it must be changing Odia cinema.
Food we are box office sale. Food we are 1,000 crore to 1,000 crore. So ask all of us would be thinking what are we going to eat in the dinner. We love it.
Chaat.
Anything you ask, right in the corner. In 100 feet you will see 10 or 20 shops. Yeah. That no one can compete with us.
Do we have time for any audience questions or do we not have time for it?
I think they've taken the hint from me where I told them that I have, no, because I told them that at all festivals, before it is 5 minutes time, the person stands right in front and does this. That's it.
Yeah.
So no questions, now?
There's a question there.
We can just take 3 questions.
Okay, 3 questions. Here, pass on the mic to